Hey friends, welcome back. It's wonderful to have you guys. It's Sean from SGTReport.com here and SGT Report on YouTube. We're getting harder and harder to find on YouTube, but as I've been saying, Senator Josh Hawley would like to change that. He's introduced a bill that might allow people like me to sue YouTube and other big media social platforms if they continue to shadow ban and censor us. We'll keep an eye on that important story. There's also a move by the Department of Justice that suggests the same is in the works there. And of course, President Trump signed an executive order recently trying to, at least threatening to, rein in big social media companies. Again, a very important developing story. Also developing, gold nears breakout as Goldman upgrades precious metals on debasement fears. I have our good friend Bob Kudla, the founder of Trade Genius, back on the line to talk about all of it. Bob, how are you?
I'm doing great, Sean. How about you?
I'm doing very well as we're having this conversation today on Monday. Silver is at $17.85 an ounce. Gold is at $1,763 per ounce, nearing breakout territory. And platinum, which I still think is a bargain, is only $837 an ounce. Your thoughts on Goldman saying the breakout in gold and precious metals is near based on debasement fears? Boy, is that an understatement.
Yeah, it's inevitable. Even if the dollar stays strong, it's irrelevant because the rest of the world's currencies are falling apart, Sean. And as soon as gold breaks out of its all-time high, silver will be right behind it, and the miners will start lifting off. In fact, what was really interesting on Friday is as the market was selling off into the close, traders were buying all the silver and gold miners, and we had follow through again today. So I think there's a recognition that all systems go, and also, you can't poo-poo the geopolitical stuff going on right now. Egypt and Turkey Libya may go to war. Turkey and Greece may go to war. China is agitating against India, Hong Kong, and Taiwan all at the same time. And then, just look around our cities, right? So I think there's enough geopolitical risk and currency risk and default risk that people are like saying, interest rates are not going to go up anytime soon. And so that puts pressure on gold and silver. So I think it's going to free it. And then Trump today said this next stimulus thing is going to be extremely generous. So, we have fire and napalm all mixing together. And I think it's going to be good news for gold and silver and miner holders. And I agree with you, platinum and palladium as well.
I hadn't heard that from the president about more stimulus and being very generous. What's that about? More checks for the people or for the banks, or both?
I think it's all of the above. He said his very generous comment was for the people, but they're talking about another $1 trillion in stimulus infrastructure payments and stimulus checks, and then also trying to get people to come back to work versus sitting on their rear ends and continuing to collect the unemployment checks.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about the COVID second wave propaganda that's flying out now in the mainstream media. It suggests they want to try to shut down the economy again on the back of this nonsense. But before we do that, you sent me 3 charts, one of which was GOLD, and you guys made 4.5% in just a day or two on that one. Do you want to talk a little bit about how people using Trade Genius can make 200% a year in the markets?
Yeah, so we have a system called the ribbon system, Sean, that looks for everything's price-based, and then it looks for buying momentum to come in. And those charts that I sent you were simply the confirmation of 2 ribbons coming together. You make the trade, and then we're in these trades short-term. So we're not necessarily day traders, although we do day trading when we talk about in the futures. But we're in these trades for 2 or 3 days. We look to make 3 or 4%. We're not chasing any penny stocks. These are all brand name companies that you see. And you just continue just to roll these trades. And if you make 3% every 2 or 3 days, that technically can make you a 200% year.
Can I ask you something though? Because here's what I'm terrible at. This takes discipline, doesn't it? Because when you make 4.5% on GOLD in a couple of days, I have the propensity to not want to sell it, thinking I'm going to make another 2 or 3 or 4 or 5%. You have to have discipline, don't you?
You do, but what we do is also we kind of help you with that because we actually will tell you to move the stop up or hey, you need to jump off of that trade but you have to pull the trigger, so they're we don't do it for you, but we definitely give you all the tools to do it. And we even have buy signals and sell signals that we push right onto the computer, so you can see right in front of you. But there's always a trade every day, and so what we try to do is we give you signals, but we also teach you how the signal system works, and then we also give you trading rooms and chat rooms where you can make the trades. And then in addition to that, we actually put indicators right on your computer that you can use, and you can actually see it. It'll literally say buy and it'll literally say sell. So we try to make it as simple as possible for you. And then if you need extra coaching or training and things like that, we have that for you too. So depending on what level of service that you want to buy, you can start off as simple as just getting the signals all the way through, getting personal coaching, joining a live chat room where you can actually be speaking directly to traders and so on and so forth. Okay. And we put the bundles together and we pre-discounted them like we always do for you, Sean. 65% off. Saturday, the 27th is the date those prices go off the board, and they're just a killer deal. We've been doing this a long time, so the system we know works, and it works off price and momentum. And there's always a bull market somewhere. Even if the market's going down, there are things to buy.
All right, Bob, I'll link to Trade Genius below this interview for anybody who wants to check it out. So thanks for that. Let me ask you something. Where do you think these $100,000 Bitcoin parties that Cliff High had been talking about a year and a half ago are? I still haven't seen any $100,000 Bitcoin parties, Bob. Are we going to?
Well, what's happening now is that we went through the halving here, and then usually 4 to 6 months after the halving, you're going to see a lift in the market. I'm much more conservative than that, because I'm looking out, 6 months to a year at a time. A lot of those guys hype this stuff to get people all excited, but something happened today which was very interesting is that both Square and Venmo announced that they're going to allow people to buy, trade, and sell cryptocurrencies right from their platforms. And those are really retail friendly. Coinbase is kind of a pain. It's kludgy, to use. And those guys simplify it. And they're going to probably do to crypto what Robinhood did to stock trading. And I think you're going to see probably a lift from that. But, the math has not failed yet on Bitcoin. And so, from prior halvings, you're going to see a move, from this $8,000 to $10,000 range area. The potential is there for over $250,000 by the time the next, halving is going to occur in 2022, 2023. I take it a day at a time, but the return on investment in crypto still eclipses everything, and right behind it is gold. So the things that we're trading is going up, and there's always opportunities in crypto. And what I really like about cryptocurrencies is the momentum. So you can make a lot of money even if it doesn't go anywhere just by buying and selling it. So if you're a hodler, you put some stuff away. If you're a trader, you trade it, and you're going to do quite fine. I sent you a chart also. You probably didn't get a chance to get it, but just look at Link BTC. I mean, this thing is, when it moves, it's a machine. Our signals catch these moves, and I think you can do really well with some of these alts. We think the alt season's ending here in the summer, and Bitcoin will lift, and then the alt season will come back in the fall.
We're seeing propaganda now about COVID breaking out again, a second wave. Now, just to level set, and I think our listeners very well understand this, the nonsense of the coronavirus is this. In my state, there's a $1.3 billion surplus. Then they shut down the economy. Now there's a $2.4 billion deficit because they shut everything down. And get this, Bob, by the state government's own numbers, only 1,300 or so deaths attributed to COVID, and over 1,000 of those deaths were in long-term health care facilities. So 300 people that weren't elderly, by their count, died from this thing, and they spent billions of dollars to try to save lives. Are people going to allow this thing to shut down again on the basis of a second wave?
Absolutely not. I think people are done being done with this. And, the data shows that, even though that these quote unquote infection rates are rising, hospitalization rates are falling, death rates are falling. And in Italy, they just announced that the virus is mutating. It's called viral drift, is mutating at such a level that its potency is becoming anemic, and it's no longer really affecting people anymore. And in fact, I know you'll be happy to hear this, is that basically any vaccine they're working on right now will be irrelevant because number one, they don't have enough people to test it on, and number two, by the time they get it out, the virus will look nothing like it did, a year ago. So I think this whole thing is going to burn itself out. The other thing most people don't know is if you had the flu in any significant way, in your life, you have a lifetime immunity to most COVID viruses. And they say only 40% of the population is even at risk of even getting sick totally. 60% have natural immunity already. And of those, 95% of the people aren't going to be affected anyway because their body recognizes recognizes the cousin, and the immune system attacks it quickly and efficiently and knocks it out. But like you said, the people that are dying, I think the average age in the United States is 81. And so, and most of these people have morbidity, probably of something else they would have passed away on anyway. Look, I'm preaching to the choir to tell you that I think this thing was the greatest hoax ever foisted on the mankind.
Well, and we can see the agenda, right? The real agenda is to roll out a vaccine globally and make it mandatory. Now, those of us who are paying attention to all of this stuff and what Bill Gates would like to do very well understand how lucky we are that President Trump is in the White House and not Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton would definitely support a mandatory vaccine, and somebody like her might even roll out the military to make sure that that guideline is enforced once a vaccine is ready. So I think to me that's the terrifying part, is that there are people that are showing their true globalist colors, and people like Bill Gates want to roll out a mandatory vaccine, which to me, Bob, is just the absolute line in the sand. I will not take a mandatory injection.
Well, the thing is, too, is, the vaccine, let's assume that there's no issue with vaccines. Let's assume that vaccines work. That's not why they're so hot and bothered about getting this thing out there. There's something more inside of that test tube that's going to be shot into your body. We used to joke when I was in the Marine Corps is that, the stuff they feed us is to keep us focused on the war and not on girls, and so who knows what they put in this stuff. I mean, Bill Gates he's a population, depopulator, so these people would love nothing more than to, create sterility and anything else. And what's ironic with me, 5 years ago, I would have said all this stuff is conspiracy theory. Now, the trust level with these people is at absolute zero. I mean, the fact what they did here with the virus, is absolutely criminal. And they couldn't. My view is they couldn't get you to move over for the climate crisis, so they had to create something even more scary. And I don't know what's on the agenda next. It looks like it might be war, the way China is agitating out there. So, these people, I think, are either extremely confident or extremely desperate right now, Sean.
Yeah, I think so too. And we'll just flush this out a little bit further as it relates to COVID and the economy. 30% of Americans didn't make their housing payments in June, Bob. If these criminal state governors try to re-shut down their economies again, I think people are going to go ballistic unless they're pacified by big, giant government checks. But if that happens, it gets me back to that Goldman statement about debasement fears. There's no easy way out of this at this point. The trillions and trillions and trillions are just going to continue to be printed, and sooner or later this system breaks.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Federal Reserve now is in the position where they're buying up corporate bonds. And I think because they're extremely fearful that the banks that are very much exposed to, consumer debt and mortgage debt and also the oil patch debt, that the banks are essentially insolvent. And so they're trying to take as many things off their books as possible. The other thing that I've been telling people that most people don't realize, when the Federal Reserve takes these loans on and receives these interest payments, that money actually flows through the Federal Reserve to the U.S. Treasury. They do this with school loans too, and they do it with SBA loans. So the government may borrow the money from the Fed, or the Fed may have things on their books, but the Fed keeps their toll, the Federal Reserve keeps their toll, but the rest of the money flows back into the Treasury. So it's going to be another thing where the Treasury is going to get used to this money that they're receiving from interest payments, and it's going to become a normal part of business. It's just another way in which they're going to try to continually to control the economy. And once they do that, is that companies are now going to be at the mercy of whatever government's in power, because they can say, well, we're not going to buy your bonds unless you adhere to this or that. And you can see the way corporations are rolling over on this protest stuff, that the government is knee deep in the short to these corporations, and they're pulling the strings behind the scenes. It's just going to get worse. Now, regarding when this thing may tip over, they're fighting some serious behind the scenes deflation right now, Sean. So we may not see it in a year or two, but we're definitely going to see it after that, when they just have to keep shoving, $2 to $4 to $6 trillion into the economy to try to jumpstart it. And then when it jumpstarts, it's going to be like a conflagration fire where it's just going to rip out of control. And that's where you have to be protected with, I think, these precious metal commodities, because there's going to be very few things that are going to give you purchasing power when this thing rolls over.
Can I ask you something about real estate? Do you see a time in the future where those of us with precious metals and cryptocurrencies, those of us that have been prescient, those of us that have tried to do the right thing for a decade or more, will be rewarded and be able to purchase real estate cheaply? And I'll give you an example. There's a building in the downtown area of my little town that's currently on the market for $2.3 million. Beautiful building, right? Restaurant below, giant 4,500 warehouse space above. Really incredible piece of property, but $2.3 million is a lot of money. Do you foresee a time when this real estate bubble pops and those of us with precious metals could take advantage of it?
I would think so. I'm surprised at the strength right now, that there's very low inventory on the markets at the moment. But yeah, I mean, look, we're going into a demographic bust here, where over the next 10 years, the baby boomers are going to be rolling off the earth, and their homes are going to be up for the market, and a lot of their children won't be able to afford to move into some of these properties, or don't need to move into those properties, and they're going to roll onto the market too. So I would say, at any point here in the near future, you're going to see the price of real estate. Now, I'll give it to you in a different way. Real estate priced in gold will probably become cheaper faster than real estate priced in dollars, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Kind of exactly what I was driving at. All right, so we'll move on here. I think we're all getting a little bit disgusted by the deep state, but the good news is the deep state is showing its true colors like never before. Let me just show this wonderful cartoon from Ben Garrison, lightning bolt, pro-war, anti-Trump, neocon, John Bolton. He could be facing time for a couple of different reasons at this point, but the good news is this book that he ought not have released, the profits from the book he should not have released, are probably not going to go to him, and he may face criminal liability for leaking and breaking his classification or his confidentiality agreement. What a worm. But again, the president, surrounded by deep state criminals. Why in the world would he have ever let John Bolton into the White House to begin with, Bob?
That one I can't answer, but I agree with you with the with Bolton in deep trouble. I mean, this, when Trump said, "Hey, I won this ruling with the judge," he already knew that this book's already been leaked out there. Apparently, if there was any bombshells in it, it would have already been trumpeted by the mainstream media, and Bolton just simply put himself up in terms of legal jeopardy now. So, yeah, I don't get it. I mean, I've never been a big John Bolton fan anyway. I hate neocons, and these people are happy to sacrifice my life, as a military person, and and sit back and try to reward themselves in the chaos like they did in the Ukraine, and I'm sure they've done in the Middle East. So these guys need to go, and I think that's why they hate Trump so much, because he's trying to not be in any wars as a president, like for the first time since I was alive.
Yeah, well, I'm going to play a truth bomb for people here as we round out the conversation in a second. I'm excited to play this clip, but people are so fed up with these deep state criminals. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. Did you hear that Gab, so it's a social media platform that essentially rivals Twitter or Facebook. It's an alternative that doesn't censor conservatives, much akin to BitChute being an alternative to YouTube's fascism. Gab just sent out an email to all its members saying that Visa has deplatformed them, citing them for hate speech because they're a platform that allows conversations to happen. Can you imagine a world where Visa would contact YouTube or Google and say, we're banning you, you can't process credit card payments using Visa because of hate speech? They're platforms. See, you got to love the double standard when it comes to these social media companies in bed with fascist corporations like Visa, Bob. It absolutely makes my blood boil.
Yeah, just like they did, I think, with 8chan or 4chan, whatever that was before. Yeah, I mean, the big problem is in the banks. So, they control who they allow to even do business. That oligopoly needs to be broken up as well.
Oh, wait, there's one other thing I wanted to tell you, too. Getting back to the economy and the printing of trillions of dollars, do you know what I'm hearing people say now more and more? Like when I go to the health club and just interact with other men and we talk about stuff, people that don't know what I do and people that maybe aren't truthers and maybe they don't know all of the things we know, people are getting so fed up with the printing, Bob, that people are starting to ask me, why are we paying taxes? Why on July 15th do I have to write a check to this government when they can just print the money out of thin air? So people are waking up, but at the end of the day, what can you do? I mean, the IRS, they have the guns, they have the enforcement. They can do whatever they want. But it does beg the question, why do we pay taxes when the Fed just prints?
Yeah, obviously we're going to follow the law because that's who we are as people. But yeah, and, I'm hearing that a lot too in my circles as well, saying if they can whip up $4 trillion, why do they have to take it out of my pocket? And the other thing, I'm hearing the same thing. I'm hearing people that are what I would call independent to slightly left-leaning suburb people saying, I'm not too sure I want to live in an environment where the mob is in control of my political party. So I think there's a lot of murmuring going around down there, and I think these guys are all overplaying their hand here and trying to survive.
Well, we just need a more fair tax system, that's for sure. All right, let me just do another screen share, and we're going to round out this conversation with some truth bombs. I don't know if you saw this clip, but I tweeted this out. I think it was on June 20th I tweeted this out. Let me do a share. Bob, tell me if you can't hear this right away. Bob, check this out. This guy's name is Steve. And
I love this one.
Have you seen this one?
Yeah, excellent.
He drops some serious truth bombs. Let's listen.
Stephen, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me, when did you become a Trump supporter, and what drew you to him, and were you always a conservative, Republican? Tell me.
Yeah, I walked away from the Republicans back in 2006. Once we gave them a trifecta from 04 to 06, they spent like drunken sailors, and they became, basically Democrats. So I walked away from them back then. Then they, half the country's wealth was stolen in broad daylight. September of 09, nobody goes to jail except Bernie Madoff, and he was stealing from his own people. Then, of course, they ushered in Obama to normalize Marxism in the United States of America, teeing it up for Hillary to do us in. I just, you think it'd be common sense you wouldn't vote for a guy named Obama for president of the United States, particularly since that wasn't even his real name, but.
Well, thank you for sharing that. One more question for you too. Where do you stand with all the issues that are taking place in today? Or I should say more recently with the whole BLM movement, the whole police, anti-police, anti-government, almost basically. Where do you stand with all that?
Well, I mean, the thing is that if you're going to burn down cities and defund the police, you're no friend of ours. These people are the same people that rigged an election, rigged an investigation, and rigged an impeachment process against the American people, and they lost all three. They voted for a guy named Obama not once but twice, and he stole everything. That's why they were down on Epstein Island raping and eating those babies down there. Just look at the flight logs. They all knew who he was, what he did, where he did it. That's why they got on his plane to fly down there and do it with them. That's what the real problem is. It's pedophilia. And as soon as, everybody finds out that all these people are pedophiles, that's when the party really begins.
I'll pause it there. I mean, what an amazing dude. I don't know his real name. We got to figure out who this guy is. Maybe people have figured it out. It's Steve. I think that's about all I know, but he's better than Tucker Carlson. This guy should have his own show.
Man, and he was clean and quick and clear, and he minced no words. So, he's not wrong. I mean, you look at Justice Roberts, what do they have on him? You look at Lindsey Graham, what do they have on him? What do they have on McConnell? I mean, these guys, everybody's been co-opted, and not just pedophilia. I mean, it could be anything. These guys have been blackmailing people for a long time, and now, they get them all trapped.
Yeah, and I like that he hit on BLM, because what's going on in Seattle just blows my mind. I have a stepsister who lives in Seattle, actually, and it's a beautiful city. At least it was. I was there less than a year ago. Beautiful city. And now, I mean, how do you even explain what's going on in Seattle? I guess you just put it at the foot of a Democrat mayor and say, well, this is what you get if you continue to elect Democrats. Yeah,
I mean, they're just handing Trump campaign ads. I mean, you want mobs or jobs, or
that's a good one.
Or do you want to just go ahead and, here, come into a city near you, right? Antifa, vote Biden. This is your future. Burn down cities and mobs running around your neighborhood. And the last thing people want to be is afraid. And so, hopefully a lot of people are sitting on the fence will lean Trump's way on this, because, he's been playing it pretty straight for the American people. And if people can't see that he has the country's best interest at heart, then, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think a lot of people are going to be voting with their moving trucks. I think that's what's going to happen. More and more people will flee these big liberal cities and states like California and head to places where there is liberty. Guys, our guest has been Bob Kudla, the founder of Trade Genius. Thank you, Bob.
Hey, thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I'll link to Trade Genius below, guys, if you want to check it out. And for real news 24/7, guys, please visit us directly at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda. God bless. Bye-bye.
And when I discovered, by the way of evidence and thinking and science, actual science, that we live in an intelligently designed system, that brought me to God and made me realize there's a creator.